Hello, our verse today is 1 John 1:8. And so let me go ahead and give you a chance, if you're somewhat proficient in Greek, to see if you can translate this. Okay, and now let me give you my translation. If we should say that sin we are not having, ourselves we are deceiving, and the truth is not in us. How'd you do? Just to break it down, you can go now if you're really good at Greek and you just wanted to do your daily pump. But if you want to look at the translation in more detail, so if we should say, I'll do the grammar on the next one. This is a conditional clause, of course, the if part, with the on being the iffy if of the two. That sin we do not have or are not having. Okay, we'll talk about the interpretation of this in a second. Ourselves we are deceiving, and the truth is not in us. Now, this verse is often used as a proof text, or, if I'm wrong, as a good text. But I think it's often used as a proof text to say, hey, if you say that you're not sinning, then you're deceiving yourself. But I don't think that's what it's actually saying, because the word is not, if we say that we do not do sin. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say if we say that we are not practicing sin. It says if we say that we do not have sin. I believe that this verse is John's equivalent of Romans 3:23. All have sinned and are lacking the glory of God. That all that this verse is saying is that if we say, look, I don't need forgiveness, I don't need God's cleansing, Christ's cleansing, I don't need Jesus to die on the cross for me, I don't have sin. That's what this verse is addressing. This verse is not addressing a person who would say, well, as far as I know, I haven't sinned today. That's not who this verse is not addressing that person. This person is addressing the person who says, I don't have sin at all. The person who says, well, I don't need to be forgiven for anything. That's who this verse is addressing. And when we get to 1 John 1:10, I will defend that even further. 1 John 1:10 has a perfect tense, if we say that we have not sinned, implying that we haven't sinned in the past and that we therefore don't have sin now that needs to be cleansed. This is not addressing the person who says, I haven't sinned since yesterday. That's not who this person is, who this verse is addressing. This verse is addressing the person who says, I'm okay. I'm pretty good. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. Doggone it, people like me. I don't really need Jesus to die for me. And as we get into 1 John, I'm going to argue that basically Gnostics, or a specific group of Gnostics known as Docetists, are in view in 1 John. And they didn't feel like Jesus needed to become flesh. They didn't feel like they needed Jesus to die on the cross. They denied that Jesus died on the cross, some of them. And so that's what this verse is about. This verse is not saying, if you say you didn't sin today, or that if you say that you don't sin every day in word, thought, and deed, you're deceiving yourselves. That's not what this verse is addressing. And I know this because of 1 John 3:9. 1 John 3:9 says, the one who is born of God is not able to sin. What's that mean? That verse is simply incompatible with a reading of this verse that would say that we inevitably sin. Actually, 1 John is completely going in the opposite direction. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with him. God is light. In him is no darkness at all. If you're walking in darkness, you're not walking with him. The whole thrust of 1 John is against sin. And so to take this verse, rip it out of context and say, if you say you don't have sin, liar, that's not what this verse is about. This verse is addressing a person who says, I don't need Jesus to die for me. I don't have sin, in my opinion. Okay, well, the preaching is now over, and we will go to the grammar. So, as we said, when on is here, we know it's a conditional clause, okay? And this is the iffy if, and it expects a subjunctive. Subjunctive is coming, because it has the on part of it is the little bomb that throws everything up in the air and says, this is all contingent. So we expect a subjunctive. And we're not disappointed. Apomen is subjunctive. Can you parse it by now? Parsing is when you give the parts. Start at the end, move back. So men is what? Men is a first person plural, we, active kind of ending. So it's first person plural active. The connecting vowel has been fried, which confirms that this is subjunctive. And then it's aping an aorist. And so the full parsing is it's first person plural from the ending, it's active, we know from the ending, it's subjunctive, we know from the connecting vowel, it's aorist because ape is the stem of the second aorist of Lego. Okay, if we should say. Okay, that sin we do not have. Okay, this is what kind of a clause introduced by Hoti? That's right, it's a noun clause, right? And then we continue. What kind of a word is this? Ha'altus. It's a reflexive pronoun, ourselves. It bounces back to the subject, which is we. We deceive ourselves. And. Okay, so let's can you parse planomen? Men, it's the same thing we just saw. First person plural, implying we, and it's active. Now, the omega is ambiguous. It could be subjunctive. We're in the apodosis now, by the way. That was the prodosis, the if part. Now we're in the apodosis, the then part. And so I'm thinking it probably isn't subjunctive because it's not part of the if clause. It's not part of the on clause. It's part of the then clause. And you see it has a little police line there that says, there's been a crash here, please step back. And so basically, planomen is the crash of planao, the alpha. It's a contract verb or a crash verb, as I call it in my plebeian way. And so it's not crashing into an omega. It would have looked the same if it was subjunctive, by the way. It would have crashed and become an omega if it was crashing with an omen subjunctive as opposed to an omen indicative. With alphas and omicrons, omicrons win out over almost everything, and it gets crowned along omicron, which is an omega with a police line. So unfortunately, this omega is ambiguous. It turns out to be indicative, okay? From planao, to wander like a planet, to deceive, to err, as it were. Okay, and the truth is not in us. The truth is not in us. Okay, so there's a little bit of the grammar. So as we have been doing, let's finish by pronouncing the words. Hopefully, if you've been doing this, you can pronounce the words okay. So let me again go through the letters and the pronunciation fairly quickly. You're going to have to hit pause real quick. Epsilon alpha nu, eon, which means if. Epsilon iota p, omega mu, epsilon nu, apomen. Omicron with a rough breathing mark, rough like the sea, so it's going to be ho, and then tau iota, hoti. Alpha with a rough breathing mark, so ha. Mu, alpha, rho, tau iota, alpha, nu. Hamartion. Omicron, upsilon, kappa, uk. Epsilon, chi, omicron, mu, epsilon, nu. Echomen. Epsilon with a rough breathing mark like the sea, he. Alpha, upsilon, tau, omicron, upsilon, sigma. Ha'altus. P, lambda, alpha, nu, omega, mu, epsilon, nu. Planomen. Kappa, alpha, iota, chi. Eta with a rough breathing mark, that's the word the, he. Alpha, lambda, eta, theta, epsilon, iota, alpha. Aletheia, truth. Omicron, upsilon, kappa, uk. Epsilon, sigma, tau, iota, nu, estin, he, she, or it is. Epsilon, nu, n, in. Eta with a rough breathing mark, rough like the sea, hey. Mu, iota, nu. Hey, min, or hey, mean. And there you have it. Eon apomen, hoti hamartion uk ekomen, healtus planomen, kai he aletheia, uk estin en he min. There you have it. 1 John 1:8. We'll see you, Lord willing, tomorrow.